Welcome to our lecture series, Healing Architecture, Best Practice in Healthcare Architecture. Today, we are already in the position of the third lecture, Touching Architecture, from Andrea Möhn. I'm really excited actually to have Andrea Möhn here today for you, because she has a completely different definition of architectural space for us. Normally, if you look at architectural space, you have the Euclidean space with length and width and height. So the geometrical space which you have in the drawings. But Andrea is really defining space from a completely different point of view, from the psychological approach, from the perception of the people who use the space. It's more or less a phenomenological way of defining space, much closer to philosophers like Maurice Merleau-Ponty than to architectural definition of Neufert and people like this. I'm very much excited to hear you. I'm very welcome to our virtual space, Andrea. Now I give the word to my colleague, Alexandra Abel, and she likes to say a little bit to Andrea. And then afterwards, she will give to our both students who will take part of the discussion and will lead us a little bit to the following discussion.
Also a warm welcome from me. Thank you, Axel. And thank you all for joining us. Good architecture knows about the needs of the users it is created for. That sounds banal, but it isn't. Children with cancer still have the need to play, meet their peers, experience positive challenges, even in the hospital. Their parents need privacy while they accompany their children as supportively as possible through the treatment. People with schizophrenia need an environment that gives them appreciation and emotional relaxation. Actually, all of these needs are pretty normal. Nevertheless, they are often not met in the context of hospitals and residential groups. How to approach the needs of special user groups with studies, surveys, examinations, conversations, observations, and, according to Andrea Möhn, with empathy. Empathy, recognizing the counterpart in his or her needs. This is so human in the best sense of this word that it touches us deeply. Fromm calls this empathy love. A good architect, so Ralph Erskine, cited after Jan Gehl, a good architect has to love people. Today's guest expert during our preparation was Susanne Lochner from the University Erfurt. She's at the chair of inclusive educational processes for people with mental and multiple disabilities. Her focus is on death, grief, and sexuality in the context of mental disabilities. Thank you also, Susan, for the impulse you gave to us. And now I hand over to Nick, student from the Bauhaus University, for the introduction of Andrea Möhn.
Hello, my name is Nikolaus Striefler, together with Victoria Grossart, one of two students from Bauhaus University, here today moderating this evening's topic to you, which is several projects as part of her general focus, Touching Architecture, by Andrea Möhn. And I would like to welcome and shortly introduce our guest, Andrea Möhn, who founded Andrea Möhn Architects BV in Rotterdam in 1998 as Möhn and Baumann Architects. Andrea Möhn attended the Technical University of Berlin, the University of Stuttgart, and the Technical University of Delft, the latter on Erasmus scholarship. In 1994, she graduated from Stuttgart with a distinction. Her main focus lies on influence of the social, psychological, cultural, and economic spheres upon architecture today. This multidisciplinary approach has led Andrea Möhn to innovative concepts, resulting in various successful projects, many of which have received international attention and appeared in publications worldwide. Alongside working at her firm, Andrea has lectured at Delft Technical University and been invited as a visiting critic at the University of Stuttgart. Nowadays, she is lecturing at the Academy of Architecture and Urban Design in Rotterdam, the Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences, and the University of Applied Sciences in Dortmund. As our lecture series with Dr. Alexandra Abel focuses combining elements of architecture and psychology, we are curious to hear Ms. Möhn's presentation, especially about Dolph's Room from 2012. A very warm welcome to Andrea Möhn.
Thank you very much, Axel Buether, Alexandra Abel, and Nikolaus for this wonderful introduction. I'm delighted to hear all these nice words. I will share my presentation with you, and I hope I can inspire you with my projects. Share screen. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. You already mentioned that we started the office 23 years ago, and a lot of interesting projects came along and helped us to define maybe a new kind of healthcare architecture in our way, in our sense. But I would like directly to jump into the topic of today, touching architecture. It's a wonderful title, and I think it says a lot about my approach and the kind of architecture I design. I thought about showing you, taking you a bit in the development and history of the office and how I started and slowly approached the stadium that I could design Dolph. And everything started a bit with this project. It's a Tetsch building. When we arrived at that building, it looked like this, and they asked us to extend it and to renovate it. And this is like a shock for an architect. But in the end, we renovated it to a project like this. And I would like to point out only a few topics and a few aspects who we already could reach at this project. So we integrated it into the nature. This is a very important topic in our work. And we reused Tetsch because of the very wet environment and in a Dutch landscape. And it's close to one of the busiest highways. But still, when you're there, you do not feel that. And you see this little knick in the facade, and it gives you like a big hug. It protects you. So when you are sitting on the terrace, it feels very like a protection. And the users were afraid that this is a daycare center for mentally disabled clients. They were afraid that they would run away, and they wanted to make a fence around the terrace. And we said, oh no, please not, we will not do that. And then we shaped the landscape a bit like hills left and right. And for them, it's like, okay, the world is ending here. So they stay on the terrace. And this sensitive kind of architecture and approach, I think it's quite typical. So this integration into the environment. And it's lovely with this Tetsch building. The materiality plays an important role. This very old technique and traditional material used in the Netherlands. And then you see that the clients, the users are touched by the Tetsch because it's very, very friendly and very, very familiar. The next project was a daycare center again, but this time for a very, very difficult group for adults with the mental capacity of babies, really like 0 to 18 months. And they had to find their way intuitively into the building into their groups. And of course, they cannot read and talk. So the orientation was incredibly important. What we did is that we designed like a honey-colored wall at the backside of the hall. So they enter and they are attracted by this wall. So they walk directly straight to that wall, and then you have these 6 entrances. And so they can find their way intuitively. We also introduced like a brown line following this hall. And when this line is interrupted, they are allowed to enter a room. So they really know this and they walk along until the line is interrupted, and then they can enter a room. Participation this was the first project where we really were in a quite intensive participative process with the users. And I'm still very thankful for that, because this changed my point of view. And from on that moment, I always integrated the users very much. So task was clear, for example, not to have wardrobes and wheelchairs in the hall. How could we solve this, and how can we organize this entire building? Now, things like that. And we had a couple of sessions, and altogether we designed the perfect approach and the perfect solution. And still 13 years later, they are very happy and they still love this building. And what is lovely too is that we have windows on different heights. So depending on the clients using, the handicapped people using the rooms, some would like to hide behind the window, or we have higher windows so they can just hide behind that, and others can have a beautiful view, so that you have different kind of moments of choice. Another important project is the zigzag. And what I like very much is that this living building for 62 mentally disabled handicapped people has an inclusion, and it's possible for all the users to enter their own group. So you have 5 dwellings on the lower level and 5 on the higher. And I wanted to have them have their own entrance, and not entering the building just by an elevator and crisscross, but directly, that they directly can go to their entrance. And contrast played an important role. So the entrances are white and the surrounding is darker. And this is also a very typical element in Holland. You see a lot of dark buildings, and you see these very white frames and light. And this is a very interesting element in the Dutch culture, because you do not have, you have to produce contrast by yourself. And the buildings look very, very happy because of that. Then we designed a medical center. I call it the Wooden Forest, because it's a renovation of a very huge old buildings from the 70s. And we introduced a corridor in front, and with this structure you saw right now. And inside, we designed that the clients who are using these mentally disabled, who use this medical center, can orientate between all these trees, these sticks. So when they are in their wheelchair, they can orientate, and we could find a solution just by a very intuitive solution. So they can intuitively find their way in this building. We also work together with a very nice, with a very interesting agency, CELO, and they introduced an art project, because we wanted to have special art projects in the meeting rooms. And so to trigger the handicapped people, they worked with unlogical elements, like rabbits made from cactus, or an elephant from feathers. And just to trigger the users to say, hey, what's that? It's a really lovely project. So, and then I would love to jump to Dolph's room, which is maybe one of the most important projects, became one of the most important projects, although it's just a single room. And Dolph has the mental, I would like to introduce you to Dolph, because he has the mental capacity of a 2-year-old child. So at the moment we met him 10 years ago, he had the age of 54, but his mental capacity was 2 years. And this was the situation we found. Everything was bolted to the floor. He had a high fence, steel fence around his outside space. Even the chair was bolted to the ground. Everything was very bare and cold, everything covered with plastic elements, and he just had a steel bed in his room. Even the mattress had to be taken out every day, because otherwise he would demolish everything. He was very aggressive and secluded many times a day in his room because of his aggression. And his luck was that on a day the board came on a visit, and they saw this room and they said, no, we make a pilot from this. This is unacceptable. And money plays no role. And they asked us to have a look at this project. And I said, I cannot design for somebody I cannot ask, because he's 2 years old. I have to observe him. And then they said, oh, that could be dangerous. And I said, I will take this risk. This is his entrance door, really looked like in jail. And then on a day I observed him together with his closest caretaker. And I must say I was really helpless. And usually I always directly find a solution for a project, but in this case, I was completely empty. I really had no solution anymore. And I thought, oh my God, what should I do? What shall I do here? And while I was that empty, I observed him, and I saw him running in his rubber boots from the inside to the outside and inside and outside. And he was very busy, and suddenly it popped up in me that, oh, you're playing the role of a farmer. As you maybe remember from your childhood as children, and he actually is a child, we love role playing. So we have a fantasy and we would love to be this and this person. So I got the idea that he wanted to be a farmer and was running inside outside on his land. So I realized that he would turn crazy in this room, and we decided to ask. It's very much about his identity, and we decided to ask a very famous Dutch landscape photographer to if he could use one of his landscape photographs to give him a wide view. We integrated the television in this wall and also his door, as you can see at the left side. And this was very important aspect, that from on that moment the door was open, which gave him also kind of dignity back, like this own choice that he could decide when he could leave or enter or stay in his room. We designed furniture made from massive oak wood, and this is a very hard kind of wood and cannot be demolished as well. And we decided to give him a red floor. And of course, this always causes a lot of questions. But actually, this color is very important. It's one of the first colors you see when your mother, when the sun shines through the womb of your mother when you are in her womb as a baby. So this is a very warm and protective color. And it's not about, as maybe we would have decided for an anthracite colored floor. But in his case, it is about him, and he's 2 years old. And he feels very protected by this color. Little details. This has been the heating before, and we covered it just with oak wood. And while I observed him, I realized that he had a favorite spot. And he always loved to sit here because he had an overview over the outside area, and he could look directly to the door and who is entering. So we carved out his butt just to show him that we recognize this. So it's very much about dignity. From on that moment, he got a normal bed back. So not a stealing one, but like normal people. And for people who are that vulnerable and that aggressive and with behavioral problems like Dolph, it's very important to show them you are a human being and to do everything that help them to feel like a human being. What I always realized with all these projects that followed, that the these users really know that you are working for them, that you are designing a new project, and they are always deeply touched, and that somebody is designing something for them and trying to make their life better. This is a very interesting photograph because it shows the intensive process we had with the caretakers and with the entire team, because we couldn't have done this project alone. And I think this participation and this very intensive interaction was the key to this project. So when it came to the decision about the fence around his outside spot, we asked, oh, do we have to make a 2-meter high fence again? Will he run away? And then they said, first they say yes, and then they said, no, actually we don't think so. We think he is afraid of others. Oh, this is a very different approach and a point of view. So we decided to make a low fence when he's entering his outside space so that he feels protected, and then he freely can decide to go to the rest of the group. And at the other side of the fence is interrupted with glass and elements so that he can look through and do not have fence in front of his face anymore. You see these little stones is a nice detail. This was the position because he is also in the artistic spectrum, where he used to pee. And they said this is a very important spot for him, so we put some little stones there. And actually, after the renovation, he never used that because he felt that comfortable. But it's a really nice detail. So I tried to resume what I actually did with in the case of Dolf, and I would like to show it with this graphic. You have the existing situation. And then it's very important that you observe such a client and you listen carefully to the caretakers and their knowledge and their experience, and you observe and listen again, and you ask questions how to make things better, and they can tell you if it will work on it. And it's very important also to follow your intuition. There's a deeper knowledge in all of us, and we should take it more serious, I guess. And then you get an interpretation. In this case, he's a farmer. So it's really to get behind the secret of a person and then really design a tailor-made environment for people who are that vulnerable as Dolf. It's very important that you design such an environment. And then you get a personalized and humanized environment. Actually, it's kind of psychological architecture. When Dolf returned to his room after the renovation, we were absolutely surprised that he reacted that positive and that spontaneously, like, oh, it's that beautiful. And he fell in love with his room. And when I visited him 2 months later, he was making his bed, and he put this little carpet on the ground, very parallel to his bed. And from on that moment, his entire life changed and became very positive. He fell in love with his room and integrated again in the group, and everything changed entirely also for the caretakers. On the moment before his renovation, the seclusions were daily, and now they are 0 after all these years. And we felt very guilty about the renovation costs. But as you can see, the blue line are the normal caretaking costs per year. And the annual costs, it's like 120,000 euros. And it was doubled with extra care because of his aggressive behavior with another 120,000. And then we had the renovation costs. And directly after the renovation, the costs went down, and now they are 0. And it's, as I understood now, it's even more than 120,000 a year that they save. It's going up to 180,000 because caretakers are not that ill anymore. They feel more comfortable and safe. Also the other clients, they do not have to renovate things he's breaking anymore. And this is amazing. I love this photo very much. I found it in his photo album, and it's with his mother. And she was really happy when everything had been changed. So this was such a positive effect and project. And then years later, the healthcare institution decided to find out if there is a key or a red line in the story of Dolph, and if he can reproduce it again. So they decided to do another pilot with 12 rooms every year, 3 rooms in 4 years. So the first projects I did 2, and the first is the Cocoon. It's a lady who always undresses and is very vulnerable. Was very hidden because it was not allowed to see her. So she was really like kind of isolated. What I did again, as I did with Dolph, I observed her and I realized, and she has the mental capacity of a 4-year-old girl. And I saw that she loves pink and soft color, soft materials and pink colors. And so really a bling bling girl. She has an Indian background. And this led to that we decided to make a room again fitting for her identity. So we wanted to have her, to give her a more protected spot. So we designed a cocoon, I will show soon. And we decided to make an outside space so that she can go outside, run outside, because she loves to be in fresh air. And we made a high fence so nobody could see her. This is the design of the cocoon. We measured it and tried to find the right measurement. This was during the production. It's also really beautiful. It's from cherry wood, which fits very much to her culture. She also got kind of princess bed. It's about her. and it worked out very well. On the left side, you see her former bathroom. On the right side, the new one. Just some simple changes, a rain shower. She loves these soft thing, and she has you can't see now, but she has these pink tiles on the right side. And while we were busy with her construction site, she always entered every day and had a look what we did for her. She was really very much aware. And when she entered the bathroom, she touched the tiles and she said, "Oh, this is beautiful." Really, really like that. And yeah, this is her inside space. Of course, a pink floor, but she loves it. It's her choice. It's for her. And the outside goes, the fence goes until her nose, so she can stand there naked without being seen. From this project, I would like to show you only 2 images. It's a second, but this has been a client who was biting into the wall when he was aggressive. And I thought, how can we solve this? And I asked him, why do you do this? Well, when I'm angry, then I bite into the wall. And I decided to cover it with the same material you use. It's ash wood you use for toys for children, for little babies, so they can bite in. And after the renovation, he never did again. So this shows again, of course, we had to think about how can we solve this problem. But in the end, it was that beautiful that they never had these aggressive movements. One of the most extreme clients in the healthcare organization lived in this space. And one of the questions I asked him was, how do you like your bed? And so he thought, well, the mattress is like in a gym, and I would like to have things different. And we realized that all the clients needed, because of their age of 2 years, mental capacity of 2 years, they really needed this visual connection to the living room. So we changed this entire flat, this entire apartment for all of them, but especially for him, and also to change, and we also changed his room. And well, we did this biographical research. This is one of the most important things. When I did Dolph, I had my own intuition with that he would like to be a farmer. And later on, I understood that he grew up in this countryside. But on the other projects, I directly started to ask caretakers, the parents and everybody. And they said, well, this client loves the royal family. We don't know why, but it's like this. And so, okay, then instead of a normal chair, he will get a throne and he will get a royal bed, because he identifies that much with the royal family. Later on, his mother told me that she always went to it's Prinsjesdag. It's when the queen or the king are opening the parliament, and then you see this golden wagon, and he saw this as a child. So this is an important image, because on the left side you see a very heavy door. Still, we had to make a very heavy door that could stand aggressions and this noise. But now, from now on, this door is open, and he takes a lot of care that this door stays open. And because he, when we renovated his room, his behavioral problem was that he put his stools and urine everywhere. So we said, okay, to trigger him and to stimulate him to go to a normal toilet, we will give him a golden toilet. Let's try. And until now it works well. It's a process, and he's learning this now. Things like that, he couldn't look into a mirror, so we decided to, and all the water had to be stopped, and so we decided to put this in front of and above his bath, and in a closed position it looks like a mirror. But for the caretakers, they can switch off the water and the electricity and all the things, and that's very important. And finally, what I always realize with all these projects, and also from Dolf, as I mentioned, these fence, and where the caretakers started to think about things and said, oh, we realized that things are different. And in this process, they started to think out of the box too. And they said, oh, we realized that this person is, for him, he's very religious, and Maria is very important. We should put a Maria statue in his room. And that's what we did, in a small golden box. And directly when he entered his room, he had to be in quarantine because of his caretaker who was ill. And so he lay there for 1 week, and he always talked to Maria and gave him a lot of peace. And these are things we can maybe smile about, but it's important. And a couple of weeks ago, I got this photograph on WhatsApp, and it was from a caretaker, and he said, can you see the kisses on the plexiglass? He always gives kisses to Maria. And this is a very touching image for me, and shows that we could really found something that gives him peace. And yeah, thank you very much. This was my lecture.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It's really touching, actually, to listen and to see what you've done. I had the pleasure, actually, to visit some of the buildings with you together, and it's really something special. You actually talked about that design must be personalized. Architectural design must be personalized and humanized must create a personalized and humanized environment. And you started creating the environment for Dolf with this feeling of emptiness, which I find very interesting, actually. You had no idea, which means, on the other hand, you had no prejudices, actually, no solutions, actually, no answers. And you had to, you described, you really had to watch. Yeah, really to watch him, how he behaves in space and how he interacts with space, and to understand really the human beings, his needs, and what you could do with him. And I think it's very impressive. And this is my question to you. Maybe could you imagine that it might be a new design strategy for all architectural tasks, actually, to design like you have shown us now?
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful question. I hope so, because I think it opens a new field of approach. And I mean, I was surprised myself by what happened to me, actually. I had this kind of hopelessness, and I realized that usually we as architects, and after 6 years studies, we directly know what to do, and we have solution and straight on forward. And that was that heavy and that extreme that I had no solution immediately. And I think that was a big chance. And by that, I discovered that there's a deeper knowledge. And maybe I did not cover directly the design task with directly my thoughts, but I was open to maybe what he wanted to tell me, yeah, or what I had to discover, what was, and so I found maybe another layer, yeah, and I'm very happy.
Yeah. We are a moderation team, actually, and I'd like to hand over to Victoria, who will ask you the next question.
Hello, thank you very much. I have another question, and I think it was very interesting that you said you imagined Dolft as a farmer, and this question is directly connected to the first one, which is, how do you balance your personal intuition with maybe empirical research and participative processes? Because you always start with a blank slate in the end. So I would find that very interesting.
That's a really, really good question, because I was surprised by what happened to me in Dolft's case too, right? And after all these other projects, I realize now kind of red line, and I found out what could be the process. So in Dolft's case, it was, I just knew later on that he really lived in a countryside, so that my idea was right, my intuition was right. And in the cases, and then I found out that your biography is very important. And in the next cases, I directly used that. So I really asked, how was the childhood of this person? And especially the age of their mental capacity. So in the case of the lady, it was 4 years, and in Dolft's and the other cases, it was 2 years. And yeah. And actually, again, after all these years, now I would say it's, if you can find a moment that the life of such a person has been okay and felt good, and if you really found this ideal situation back, and you can create this as a surrounding, then you are there. This is really in a nutshell after all these years. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's quite the opportunity to rethink this process. It's very beautiful, because I think as an architect, you always ask yourself this philosophical question of, it's always, in the end, it's my own idea. So who am I designing this for? Like, can I really design something for other people? But it's nice to have the opportunity to do that this intensely.
Yeah.
But Andrea, is it possible to teach empathy? To learn empathy?
I think everybody has empathy, and I think we learn to cover it. I think in our time when we studied, Alexandra, then we learned to focus more on aesthetics and technical solutions, right? And a building had to be very fancy, and even as a student, I always felt that there's something missing, there's something lacking, you know? I think psychological and social aspects are very important and play a role. We all know that. I mean, when we are at home, we all design an environment we like, right? So why can't we be more empathic for others? And I think it's that people are always, or architects are afraid to get too close personally to another person. But if you switch off this and you say, no, I'm interested in this person, then it's another approach. If you're honestly interested in who this person is, and then you can discover a lot. Yeah. I mean, there are many possibilities. If you design a private house for a person, I think it's good to stay there for one night, right? And to see how these people live. And actually, lots of architects already do so. And when you design a school, really look and ask the kids what they like, and don't fill it in yourself. But So, and how I teach this my students, they always have to run a day in such an institution. So to get a feeling and to get in contact with the caretakers, and that they tell them things they have to take care of and or that are important. That what happened to me myself. So this daycare center on this island, I also stayed there for one day, and in the beginning they tell you, oh, we really don't know what to ask you or to tell you. And I said, oh, don't worry, just. And then after 10 minutes, he said, oh yeah, I have an idea. This is important, and my this and this is important and practical and everything. Yeah, things like that. Or in this case, what I didn't mention, but in this case, it's like there are a lot of clients who have epileptic problems. So all the rooms had to be to the north so that they do not get a shock by the sunlight. Things like that, you have to turn around and think in a different way. But you always have to focus on the users. And it's like a wonderful discovery. And for me, it's like dancing together with them.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Nick, would you like to go on with the next question?
Yeah, my next question is based a bit on the last moment, because you mentioned touching moments like the last patient kissing the Holy Mary, and a real deep interconnection we might see from the outside, but quite never understand. So my question is, what can you as architect and human, beside knowing what architecture can do for people, learn about what architecture actually can't do too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I started with early projects, because it was a process for me myself to discover the things. I learned lots of things during my study. I had a very good teacher at the University of Stuttgart, and Sibylle Heeg, and I learned a lot from her. And then with all these projects, it grew, and I was just open for that. And I still remember that, little moments like when this island was finished and I entered there on the second day, and I was standing in this hall, and I saw a client, a user, getting out of his group on his way to the bus, and then she looked like, and I thought, wow. So this is a new experience for her, such a hall and this spatial experience. And it was good to see that. And I got aware from, they are aware of this. So they really feel and see what I designed. And that was lovely. That was really beautiful. And that you get the feedback from the caretakers, how they react on things and which things work very well. That helps a lot too, to be honest. So I always go back to projects almost every year, and I ask, how are things going? What would you do different now? What can I learn? And when I had a participatory process like at this island or so, they always say, no, nothing. We just fill in ourselves and we take it, and it's great because we were asked during the process. And I think lots of architects are always afraid to lose kind of regie over process, but in the end you get it when you are entering this process, because you design much. Still, although they told me a lot of things they needed and wanted, I still were the architect and could say, oh, but this is not practical. We could better do it this way. But then I told them and I showed them, and they said, oh yeah, now we understand. It's also different. So they also learn to understand my approach, and you just have to talk with people. That's the secret. Just talk with them and be open for their opinion and good advice.
Thank you, that's great. So we have another question for you from the chat. And someone asked, are you working together with psychologists or architectural psychologists, or are there collaborations?
Yes. Well, in the case of all these mentally disabled, there are a lot of psychologists around them. And I always work together with them. They are one of the team. So not only the caretakers, but the psychologists. And I really have to know lots of their knowledge. I let it flow in the process. Yeah. And I ask them, am I right with this suggestion, with this and that? And yeah. And we really learned by working together to really create these special spaces. I couldn't have done it without them. I'm really grateful for these processes. Mm-hmm. And I think all architects should work together with psychologists because we can learn a lot. And also sociologists. Yeah, it's a difficult word.
Andrea, you certainly know the discussion about the time you're spending designing actually these highly personalized spaces. And sometimes the costs, what will it cost if you really realize all these measures? And you actually mentioned two things. The one thing is that you maybe have an impact, yeah, on the side of the users, which is highly more precious or highly more effective than the cost you actually spend. Yeah, when you create these architecture, when you build actually this space. And I think it's an interesting topic, but because in the end, there's a lot of discussion about this, the costs it will actually cause. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about if this could be a strategy, if you include the costs you have afterwards, not just for cleaning the building, even for running the building with all the people. Maybe we should discuss this to make the way free for another type of architecture. What do you think about this idea?
Yes, I fully agree with you, Axel, because I think we have to start looking from a different point of view. As I realized with all these projects that in the end we saved a lot of money, but the difficulty is that we had to explain it and to show it. And why I'm so grateful for these 12 new projects is that these healthcare institutions said, okay, we take the risk, we pre-invest to show it. And what happens now after the first 3 projects that I could do is now they start talking with these zorgkantoren. This is this in Holland. You have they get the money from certain organizations directly. It's a second organization under the ministry, and now they are in discussion and they say we can really show you the effect. So they started to change and pre-invest. Of course, they always wanted to be sure, and they said, "Oh, but we don't know in pre-arb if this really work will turn out well, right?" But now they can show, yeah, it works. So slowly they changed the process, and they are also talking with the ministry now. It's going quite far, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of that.
Thank you. We do also have quite interesting questions in our today's chat from the users who are following our or your lecture. And the first would be, and how much time in advance do you need and can you dedicate to ask and analyze the needs and wants of the future users?
How much time it takes? That's a good question. Well, in such a process like Dolph, for example, we went there for the first time when you saw these images, right, from this very devastating situation. And then I returned another time to see him alone, just with a caretaker. So another 2 hours or 1 hour. And then you have to think about things. And then we were in close contact. We started I got the first design ideas with these with this furniture made from oak, and also this wall. And then you start designing, and then you check again with the team. So, but it's like a normal process, actually. It's not that much more. It's more that you have to feel very strong, like, okay, I trust in what I feel, and I designed this because it's very unusual. I think that was maybe the toughest part of the whole process. You know, if you tell somebody, I think we would like to be a farmer, then they look at you like if you are an alien. I mean, I had to be tough from on the beginning to say, I believe in it. And now they believe because they saw the good results. But it's not that much more work, actually.
So another question from the chat, have you any experience of color effects on users, or how the conscious use of color has changed atmospheres so that even the healing process has been stimulated?
That's a really nice question. I think it grew with me. Yes, I read a couple of things about it. Later on, I realized that during my study time, I always choose seminars about hospitalism, about colors, about light. Later on, I just realized that I picked out always these seminars and design studios because I personally were interested in that. So I think my personal knowledge grew over the years. Just discovered and collected it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Another one would be, you build these rooms for one person, but can you imagine to create such personal architecture in the same way for a couple of people, like all clients of a hospital, which are the same group of clients, but not always the same person?
Yeah, I would love to do a psychiatric clinic, to be honest. Because, okay, this is very tailor-made. Yeah, it's very special just for one person. And if you are, if it's for more clients, then they are less vulnerable. It sounds strange, maybe. Of course, they are vulnerable, but not that extreme as Dolph and the other clients. They are the 30 persons in this healthcare institution who are the most extreme behavior. So then you can start more generalizing things. Then you realize, okay, you have to use colors that have a positive effect on them. It's also about proportions and space. I mean, you know yourself, the room you are in now, yeah, is the door at the right position? Do you feel safe? Is it does it feel comfortable? Can you just sit somewhere and feel protected? Do you have a nice view to the outside? All these things matter. So it's like a catalog you can check and think about for each room and space, and what should be the feeling of the user when he's in this room. Yeah, what has to be supportive for this person. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Maybe that's just a small last question. When you talked first of your lecture about the thatch building a bit, I was curious, what is the psychological significance that the chosen building material of the building thatch have for the patients besides this aesthetic, authentic, local component it has for the people who live inside?
Yeah, it's very comparable also to the zigzag building, because in both situations we made a modern building with a very familiar old Dutch material or atmosphere. So it's something that people know very, very well and gives them a familiar feeling. So that's why they relax. And by the way, and I did not mention that, what I like too is that we use the thatch almost vertical or even hanging over, which is quite unusual. And this means that for 70 years, you almost have to do nothing because the water can run down exactly. And this is very sustainable as well. So it stays beautiful. Of course, it's gray now after all these years. It's still a very natural atmosphere, very beautiful. And what I like, and that's maybe nice to mention, at the Thatch building, they took the initiative to make a special garden for the clients, where they can have special experiences. What is this? I don't know the word in English. But more for the sensorial experiences, and was their own initiative. And what you see when a project is very good, people pick it up and follow on, go on. Yeah.
Did your projects have to balance the dynamic between being supported and especially being challenged by a space? Because like many people that live in Daycare Center need like a lot of like bold colors and maybe signs to find their way. But it's also, they also maybe like it's good for them to learn to make decisions and to orient in the space.
Yeah, actually, I think a building should be always without signs. Then you have a good building. And in this case of the island, I had to design it this way, otherwise they cannot read a sign, right? And I think you all should design like this. And but for example, what I described with these windows at this island daycare center, that we put them on different heights and different sizes. So when you enter the room, the clients always can decide behind which window they sit and what they like. So it's very, they can choose different positions. That's nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Victoria and Nick. Perhaps 2 final questions from me. What do you think is the secret of good architecture in the context of healing environments?
Oh, it's very, very simple. You know, the secret is that you listen to the user, and that you are aware, and that you are open to what this person shows you, and really be open to be aware of all the little signs. Sometimes they cannot tell you, and sometimes they are not aware themselves. But look through things, you know. We all have this kind of intuition with our children. We feel when they do not feel good, and follow this. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And one last question: what can we learn from healing environments for architecture in total?
I think every environment should be healing. Of course, we do not have to be healed all the time, but all the environments should be supportive for our well-being, you know. And I'm really critical about this, because sometimes as architects we are very directive, and we say, okay, imagine a facade with all the same windows, you know, and you are standing there in the weekend and your son is asking you, hey, mommy, where are you working? And then you said, well, 3rd row and then the 6th window. Oh, wow, what an identity for my mother, right? You're just fitted in in a square, and I think things could be more personal, and we could see more the human being behind it. And then I think people would be less stressed, less ill. It would be very supportive, and still you can make modern architecture.
Thank you so much for all these inspirations.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me for this lecture.
Yeah, Andrea and all the moderation team, we already reached, unfortunately, the end of our lecture. Actually, I learned a lot actually to listen to you, Andrea. I learned that good architecture is even a question of the architecture's attitude, actually. And if you really watch how you approach your projects, how you appreciate actually the people who use your buildings, it's even sometimes you feel even the love you put in the details of the building, and the mindfulness for the needs of the people. I think then if you really listen to what you told us, what you've shown us, I think there might be a new way of designing a different kind of architecture, and to lift modernism in a new stage. It's really a huge task, actually. And I really like to thank you very, very much that you actually joined our lecture series. And now it's my part actually to announce that we meet again next week, same time, same space. We continue actually our lecture series with Peter de Fesch from the architectural studio de Fesch van der Put. He is also from the Netherlands, but not from Rotterdam, like Andrea. He is from Amsterdam. And I really like to continue this wonderful lecture series with another protagonist of a new way of architecture. Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.